afternoon, and welcome back to the Ask Dr. Renee show. In case you've never watched the show before, this show is here to motivate and inspire you to live the life you deserve. Because let's face it, this is not a dress rehearsal. We only got one, so you better do it up. So all of my guests have had amazing stories about how they are living the life they deserve. And some of my past guests have been D Nice, Michelle Williams of Destiny's Child, Lisa Nichols, Kwame. We've just had a whole host of amazing guests. And this month, in case you haven't been watching, May is Allergy and Asthma Awareness Month. And so, for those that didn't know, I am pre-order. We have pre-order right now for my book, Mommy, I Can't Breathe. And you can go to mommyican'tbreathe.com and go purchase the book. But also, this month is National Adoption Month. And so my guest today, she has both stories. She's got adoption and allergy and asthma story. So I'm really excited to talk to her. And I hope you guys will learn something about fostering to adopt today, if nothing else. So, Deborah, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm excited.
So, first of all, I always tell everyone how I know everyone. Deborah and I lived in Chicago at the same time, and I can't even remember where we met. It might have been NABJ or something. I don't know.
May have.
Yeah, I don't know. It seems like I've seen and known you forever. But because I think I knew you back at WGN even. So,
yeah. Oh, boy. It's been a while.
Right. So Deborah, please tell us, how did you get to even want to foster a child? Because I know, a lot of people are like, adoption's so expensive, and how did you get to the point of, you know what, let me see what this is about?
Sure. So first off, thank you very much for having me. I'm super excited to talk about this topic around fostering to adopt specifically. May is, National Foster Care Month. So I'm really excited to be here to share this information. For me, my journey goes way back to the late 90s. I actually was working at WGN at the time, and I was talking to a friend of mine. I had reached out to Claude Robinson, who worked for the organization UCAN. So I wanted to reach out just to find ways to mentor, to give back. And I was connected with a young lady that I started mentoring through their program, and she was in foster care. So that's how I became interested in the foster care process through my relationship with her. Again, I was mentoring her, helping her with her homework and such. And, of course, she had become like a pretty much a family member. And while, having this relationship with her, she was sort of, in different foster homes, bounced around. And so at one point, I honestly thought that I would want to foster her. I actually considered fostering her. So that's how I got introduced to the foster care system.
Awesome. So I've heard great things about UCAN. I've heard of that organization.
Yes.
I actually worked with some girls with Project Butterfly that were in the foster care system, and I was like blown away. And of course, you see things on TV and stuff, and you're just like, wow, like some of the things these children have to go through. And
yep.
I have two friends actually that foster to adopt outside of you.
Okay.
And in the last 5-6 years, your kids are all around the same age. Actually.
Okay.
Yeah, I think 4, 7, and 5. So yeah.
Yep.
So I've learned a whole lot about this recently. But can you please tell people, how did you, so after you did that and you were like, okay, this is very interesting, what were your next steps?
Yeah. So for me, I always knew that was something that I wanted to do. I continued, I think my relationship started with her when she was around the age of 8. She is in her late 20s, almost 30 years old. So we're still very much in each other's lives. What was to be a 1-year commitment turned into a lifetime commitment. So I, again, knew that I wanted to foster a child. So I got my foster care license. I went through the process of, researching organizations that I wanted to potentially get my foster care license with. And so that is pretty much how I started my journey. With getting my foster care license, I had of course, done extensive research, because I do recommend that to anyone that's interested in fostering a child, is to do your research on the organization. It's just like applying for a job. You want to get as much information as you can about an organization that you'll be working with. The one thing for me through that process I found is that I'm relational. And so I also recommend that you also get a relationship with the case manager and also the licensing rep of the agency that you're getting your license from. because they will be the ones that will call you to let you know once you're being placed with the child. So it's a pretty extensive process, from background checks to reference checks and things of that sort. But again, my recommendation is do your research on the organization first. Because you've seen tons of, movies, the Antoine Fisher story when he was in foster care. You've seen horrible stories on the news where kids that have been in the custody of a foster parent, again, these social workers are doing the best that they can. But if they're completely maxed out with cases, you want to make certain that you have a relationship with that agent so that you can be in close, contact as it relates to your particular file once that time comes for you to be placed.
So, as far as the process to get licensed, is it about the same at all of the different places?
No, every agency is different, and honestly, for me, when I initially got my foster care license, the agency that I was with, I was very clear on I wanted a girl, and I was specific as to the age range that I wanted. And they kept calling with boys, they kept calling with families. We have 4 children. So I didn't really feel that they were listening to what I was requesting. So then I changed my foster care license to a different agency. So again, you have that right to do that. You can transfer your license wherever you want. Once you have that license in your possession, again, that's just another reason to do the research, because you want to put yourself in the best position to win. I will be very honest with you. In my case, again, I did fostering to adopt. Fostering, the objective is to reunite the child with the family. So if you have that in mind to possibly foster to adopt, there is a chance that they may reunite the child with the family. So I'm not, saying this in a way that, go and foster a child, you're going to be able to adopt them. You have to go through a process.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's another reason why people are gun shy on fostering too, is because of
Yeah.
that. That is supposed to be the end goal.
Yeah.
So after you got this license and they kept calling, so you finally got an agency. Did they
Yeah.
call you with several options, several different, children that came and left your home, or?
No. So for me, again, I was really clear. It's almost, again, like when I set my mind to something, I'm very specific. And so what I did have to do, once I kept getting calls with boys, I was talking to my oldest brother, and he said, do you want to be a mother? Or do you want to be a mother of a girl or a boy? And so I then had to remove myself out of this and be open to the child that they were calling with. And so at that point, that is how I got Joshua. Again, my request was for a girl, but then I surrendered to God, and knowing that, if they're calling with a boy, then if you want to be a mother, it doesn't matter if you get a girl or a boy. And so that is the only child that was actually placed in my custody was Joshua. So I was blessed enough to get him. We got the call for Joshua when he was about 4 days old. And he immediately came into our home after being born, unfortunately, premature. And, he was in the NICU. And so we then went to meet Joshua at the hospital, and he came home with us. And so he's been the only child in my custody.
So as far as, since like you said, fostering, they're trying to get them back to the child, there's obviously you adopted, so his parents, they completely.
Yeah, so that whole process. So with Joshua, sadly, after he was born, his bio mother passed away. And so, yeah, my situation, I'm going to be very honest with you, it's very different from probably other stories that you're going to hear. But what we did know when we got the call for Joshua is that he was not to be reunited with his family, because the other children in that family were in foster care as well. So Joshua was the 4th child by this particular mother that 3 other children were already in Actually, no, he was the 5th child. 4 other children were already in foster care. So when we got the call, we knew that there was a great probability that he would actually be our forever child once we had to go through the process of getting the bio dad's rights terminated, which took about a year's time to do. We went to court. month after month. And then eventually the bio dad had his rights terminated. And then Joshua became my forever child.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. So I think the other thing with adoption, people are like, well, do they meet do they meet for Joshua because he was so young? Do they
Yeah.
meet the bio parents? Do
Yeah.
you send them pictures and stuff? I know
Yeah.
some people have open adoption, some don't.
Yeah. So for me, because of the situation that Joshua came from, when we initially again had him, he was a foster child. So with foster care, we still had to have visits with the bio dad. We still had to have visits with the bio siblings. The process with the bio dad, he made through that time probably saw Joshua one or two times and completely just fell off. So thankfully, that wasn't an issue. He did try to, sort of fight the first month or two, but then initially, eventually he just disappeared, if you will. As it relates to his bio siblings, we did keep them connected. They came to Joshua's first birthday party. We've since moved, so we haven't, been in contact with them in a while, but it is not going to be, for me, a place where I'm going to keep this a secret from Joshua. I will share with him that he was adopted, and then we will at some point, it won't be an issue to reconnect with his bio siblings because we do know and have contact with the other foster, well, she's now adopted them. He has
Oh,
two other
wonderful.
siblings that were adopted by a lady, and then his other two siblings are with fraternal grandparents. So we will, if that when that time comes, make that connection again. And I'm definitely going to share with him that he is adopted. I don't want there to be any lies. I don't want this to be some big, oh my goodness, he's at a family function and someone shares the news with him. And I don't have that opportunity to do that. But I do plan to share that with him. And at some point, we can reconnect with his bio siblings.
Oh, that's wonderful. Now, I'm sure you've noticed that adoption in Black families is so hush hush. Like you
Yep.
just said, some family member whispers and tells you, and you're
Yep.
like, what? I have a friend whose parents are deceased, and
Yeah.
she found out that she was adopted, but both her parents already died. So
Yeah.
she didn't even get to go back and say, but nothing. So
That's tragic.
that's horribly tragic, horribly tragic. So, what are your thoughts on that? Because I don't understand why.
No, I think that's another piece is removing the stigma around it, right? When you really think about us as a people culturally, this is what we do. This is what we've done. You have cousins that came to live with you, maybe there's a issue with their parents at the time and you just took them in. And so they were your adopted, although they were a cousin, they were your adopted sibling, not legally, but by love, right? And so I just think that these areas where we tend to keep secrets in the Black community, I'm really hoping that we can get in front of that, and which is why I'm so passionate about sharing this story, because I want us to not have this as a stigma as it relates to as it relates to adoption. We should not make this to be like, it's a bad thing. And it's actually a good thing. When you think about the bio mother, in this case, unfortunately, she passed away. But for people that give their children up for adoption, that shouldn't be looked at as a bad thing.
No.
They're doing that out of love, right?
Right.
And so I hope to put an end to the stigma around having this conversation around adoption.
Yeah, and it's just crazy that it's the Black community that has
Yeah.
this issue for whatever reason.
Yeah. But that's with a lot of things. I mean,
It
I
is.
can even just be even more transparent. Joshua, yes, I adopted him. I did go through foster care. I did want to always do this, but this wasn't to be my only thought, right? I wanted to have biological children. And so when I think about it, this became my only option. I went through fertility treatments. Even in that was a whole nother level of shame that I felt was around Black women. I was going through the Northwestern hospital for their fertility clinic. And when I tell you the hospital was packed with, women of other persuasions, Caucasians in particular, and they were going back, pregnant with baby in tow, going back for another. And I think for me, I felt the few Black women that I did see there sort of had their heads down in shame, didn't want to, to me, be real honest with where they were. You need some help and it's okay. And then I think about us not even talking about that, right? 35 and ticking is a real thing. We don't even have those conversations.
Yeah, and actually, I did an event, my first live event ever. It
Yeah.
was in Chicago in 2018, and we had a whole event, and it was for us, Black women, and
Yep.
we had my friend Dr. Cindy Duke, who I think is the best REI in the world.
Yeah.
She came from Vegas. She has her own practice in Vegas, now
Yeah.
Nevada Fertility Institute. And she came and she spoke to us, and actually, a large portion of the audience were actually medical professionals who in med school we didn't learn a lot of the information she gave us that day. And she and I have really, we were supposed to have a lovely tour. 2020 of course got shut down, but we were going to
Yeah.
have a tour, and we were going to go around to different cities and
Mhm.
to colleges to talk to us about our fertility and how to preserve
Yeah.
fertility, because everyone goes to college and the first thing they think of is, well, I'm going to buy a car or I'm going to buy a house, but
Exactly.
you probably should freeze your eggs.
Yeah. No, it's a real thing. I mean,
Yeah.
it's so funny you say that. When I was working at NBC, there was a young lady that was working there with me at the time, and I will never forget this as long as I live. I was heading in from lunch. She was heading out, and I'm like, "Where are you going?" She's like, "I'm going to freeze my eggs." And I'm like, "What?" Had no clue what she was doing. Had I known at that time, I would have went with her. Had no
Well,
clue.
I said to everyone, if
I
the
had no
right
clue.
person had said to me, "Are you going to freeze your eggs?"
Yeah.
then I probably would have listened. But the
Yep.
people who said it to me, I felt like you were saying that I was never going to get a man or something, and I was
Oh
very
yeah.
offended, and my feelings were
Yeah. You
hurt.
need to take
And
offense
so,
to that. Yeah.
right. And so my friends, I have friends of all ages, but a lot of my friends, because I'm a doctor, they're like, "Renee, my doctor mentioned," I go, "Oh my God, please do it."
Yes.
And they were
Let
like,
me just
"Really?" I
tell
go,
you,
"Oh, yes."
I talk to my mentees about it. That's part of our conversation. How are you doing at work and what are you doing about your eggs, lady? Like, seriously, let's have this conversation now. I wish we would have had our parents, but of course, they did the best they could.
Yes.
But share this information with us a lot sooner. And the other side of this is there's so many others that are just suffering in silence if you're not able to have, biological children, which is why, again, this wasn't like, oh my God, Joshua was an afterthought. Let me go and adopt a child. I've always wanted to do this, but it became my only option. And so for some people, it is their only option, and they are denying themselves the love and the happiness that comes with this because of fear and because of shame.
Yeah, fear, shame, and then finances. And people
Well,
keep
that's another
saying
story
that,
too.
right?
Yeah.
People, one with the freezing eggs, are like, "Oh, it's so expensive." Now, when we were that age, it was a different price tag than it is now.
Yeah.
I tell everyone now it is different because it's not so brand new that a whole lot of insurance companies actually do cover it now.
Yeah.
And when I say cover, I'm talking about they will take care of the medications, they'll take care of visits. You just have to make sure you have the right plan. There's 50, I think there's 16 states now that actually it's a part of the insurance. It has to be a part of it. And so Illinois is one of them.
Great.
And so if your company is based in one of those 16 states and you live in another state, guess what? You get those perks. So there's
Great.
so much information people don't know. But with fostering, it doesn't cost anything, right?
No, it doesn't. And so that's a great transitional question. For me, again, the process was fostering to adopt because there's so many children in the foster care system. It wasn't from a place of finance. I was working a great job at the time. If I wanted to do private adoption, maybe I could have. I just didn't choose to go that route because of the experience and understanding that I had around foster care. In Illinois alone, there are over 17,000 children in foster care. And in the United States, there are over 400,000 kids in foster care. So I wanted to make an impact in that space. I do have a dear friend of mine who's actually going through private adoption. And so we're putting together a network called Black Adoption Matters. And she's talking about it from the private side, and I'm talking about it from fostering to adopt.
That is awesome. But yeah, a lot of people don't realize fostering does not cost anything,
There's no cost.
because adoption, one, it can be very costly. Two, they look, "Oh, you're a single woman. Oh my God, for me or for my friends are like, wait a minute, how can I do this?" Although I did have a friend who many years ago was single, and she went and adopted, and we were like, "You're doing what?"
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we were so impressed,
Yeah.
like, wow. And so, she's married and has had other children now, but she was like, "This is something I want to
She
do."
wanted to be a mother.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good for her.
Exactly. And so yeah, there's all these different ways to do things, and you just need to investigate and find out, the proper
Yeah,
way to do it, and get it done. And I'm telling you, Google is your best friend.
it is. It is. And the Bible.
Yes, yes, prayer
Yeah.
and Google. I mean, you got to just get the information you need so you can
Yeah.
get it done. Now with fostering, they do give you money, correct?
So yes, they do,
Okay.
and not only that, they pay for their education. There's so many things that you get. You get a stipend a month. Well, this was prior to adopting.
Right.
You also get food support, WIC, things of that sort. So yes, they do provide you with a lot of supplementary things to help you through. Medical is free for the child forever.
Oh, wow.
Um, yes, yes. So you don't have to pay for medical insurance. So there are a lot of incentives as it relates to actually going through the foster care process. Again, keeping in mind that, of course, for them, their objective is to reunite the child with the family, but that does not always happen.
Right. And I have another friend I just remembered. She has 6 kids. She
Okay.
did foster to adopt, I think, 3 of them. So three of
Yeah.
them gave birth to 3 of them. And so now she has 6. And she's
Yeah.
single. And
Wow.
she's
I love it.
like,
I love it. I
yes.
love it.
So yeah, like I said, this is I'm hearing the conversation a lot more recently in my
Yeah.
circle. So you and Joshua, when did you find out Joshua had allergies and asthma?
So immediately, and that's an interesting piece, right? So why is it that, and maybe you can tell me this being a doctor, I'm sure it's in your book. Why is it that, we have these high percentages in numbers as it relates to Blacks with asthma? Yes, Joshua has asthma. It's so funny. When we initially would go to doctor's visits, we were at a hospital here in Chicago, and for Joshua, you could sort of hear something's not right with his breathing. And I was, taking him to the doctor, and she would say, "Oh, that's nothing." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" I mean, I could literally hear that he is wheezing. He can hardly catch his breath. He gets winded quickly. And so they never diagnosed him with asthma. They did all those tests, everything. It took us to move to Atlanta, where he is now 5 years old. And a black doctor said, "Girl, he has asthma," which I already knew.
Right.
I knew something was not right. So yes, we do have, he has an asthma pump. He, thankfully he's not had a complete, I don't know if it's an attack or
Yeah.
whatever, because I know it's quite serious. So I do monitor him. We don't use the inhaler often, but there are, again, for me, concerns as he's starting to get a little bit more active with sports and things of that sort. But yeah, we keep the pump handy, but he does have asthma.
So yeah, I didn't do sports because my
Okay.
asthma was horrible. It was horrible. And
Wow.
now, as you know, now I'm a Peloton junkie, and
Yeah.
trainer comes 3 days a
You
week.
look amazing, by the way.
Thank
You're
you. Work in
welcome.
progress. But yeah, I ran 2 5Ks, 2 10Ks, and I
Wow.
almost finished a half. I did 8 something
Wow.
and a half. So yeah, I always have my inhaler with me. It's in my pocket right now.
Yeah.
It's
Wow.
always with me, but I don't use it often either. And
Okay.
because my asthma was so bad, I took daily medication. And so I used to take pills every day.
Oh,
Then
wow.
at one point, I had to take breathing treatments 4 times a day. And then if I was sick, I had to take them every 4 hours around the clock. So my asthma has gotten tremendously better. I don't have to take
Great.
any daily medication. I just have to make sure I carry my inhaler just in case. But
Great.
but yeah, a lot of people and would be in a state of shock to one, you foster to adopt, and then you get somebody who's sick.
Yeah.
Thank God he's not sickly like I was.
Yeah.
But it could be something, it could be far worse. So thank goodness he's not sickly like that.
No, and that's very true.
Yes.
I'm grateful for that, because then you think about they can only share so much, because again, going through the foster care process, even when the bio mother passed away, of course, they could never share with us how she passed away.
Right.
Apparently, she had Joshua at home, and no, had him at home, went to the hospital, and then I guess she went back home, and that's where she died.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wow. But Black people and asthma, the thing is that, well, actually, the first time I was in Ebony magazine, we were talking about
Hmm.
that. And it has a lot to do with our environments.
Yeah.
The roaches, the roach dust or whatever, that is in old buildings and a
Oh,
lot of,
wow.
in urban communities. You see lots of higher numbers of asthma. And
Huh.
so it has a lot to do with a lot of the, things that we in our urban environments that we come up in. And then also, like you said, I think a lot of doctors don't pay attention.
No, let me just tell you, I was so upset with this lady, and he's 5 now, and I've known this, I'm telling you, since the beginning,
Right.
and she would never diagnose him. And then I brought in another doctor who I felt was more senior than her, and he wouldn't either.
Well, and then there's certain doctors that say that before a certain age, they're not going to diagnose asthma.
Okay.
And my mom was a respiratory therapist, and now she's retired from that and also retired priest. But she knew
Okay.
better because she was a respiratory therapist. So
Yeah.
she was like, she has asthma, and so I was diagnosed in infancy because
Oh,
I
wow.
always had trouble breathing. And
Yep.
then the food allergies came pretty quickly. My mother breastfed until she had to go back to work, and then I started eating oatmeal and was having attacks. And my mom,
Oh,
like I said,
boy.
was a respiratory therapist. She could see this girl is obviously very allergic to this food.
Oh, my
What
God.
else is she allergic to? And then that's how I learned about all my food allergies because and so young. And that's why people are like, "Oh my God, you can't have chocolate." I've never eaten chocolate, Deborah. I
Oh, my God.
thing
I'm
because
sorry.
I literally have had these allergies all my life. Because we've talked about my dad's an islander. We're island people. I'm allergic to
Listen.
seafood.
Yeah,
I
that
can't
is so
have it. Never
insane.
have had it.
Wow. Oh, my God. I'm so
And
sorry
my
to hear that.
grandmother, of course, thought that was just insane. Insane.
Yeah.
Like, how could she not eat fish?
Right.
And I
Right. Oh,
can't
my
smell it
God.
cooking either. So it's like if you're gonna cook it, I gotta be outside or I gotta go somewhere for a while for you to air out the house. So all these things, but I never had these things, so it's not a big deal to me because I just never had them.
Wow. I
Because
cannot
my mom
imagine.
we got everything diagnosed so early. And
Wow.
then I know I had another allergy test when I was 10 that I was like, we don't ever need to repeat this again. Whatever I'm allergic to, I'm just gonna be allergic to because that scratch test, I remember it like it was yesterday.
Wow.
I don't want to go through that again. Now, I did have a blood test that was, and those aren't as accurate. You really want a scratch test. I had one of those when I moved to Chicago, and it was saying I could eat some things. My mother goes, eat them if you want to, but I don't think it's a good idea.
Yeah, no, right? Oh my
And I
God.
said, you don't have to worry. I'm not crazy. And so I was like, I'm not going to eat anything. So I just have this list of allergies, and that's just the way it is.
Yeah. Now, do you have to take like an EpiPen, or how does that
I
work?
do.
Yeah.
I have actually I use Avacue now because if you recall a couple years ago EpiPen had went up so high on their prices it was crazy. And
Yeah.
my doctor who is amazing in Chicago, Dr. James Thompson, I told him I'm going to Trinidad for Carnival and my cousins are really concerned that I don't get sick and they think that they should have an EpiPen on them. So if I'm not with, my sister, then at least one of them has it or whatever.
Yeah.
And so he goes, "Oh, Avacue, I'll call it in, and they actually UPS them to my house,
Oh, great.
and they were free." They said, but the catch was you had to have insurance. So I don't know if they still have the plan like that,
Okay.
but that was the thing. So it didn't cost me anything, and they sent me 4.
Oh, great. Well, good for
So
you.
it was me, my sister, and then my 2 cousins, their sisters. So each one of us had one. So in case something happened, I've done Trinidad Carnival twice and I've never gotten sick. I eat the food off of the side of the road. I've never gotten sick. So,
Great.
but I do have them with me. Now, I will tell you that I'm a doctor and I swear I tell everyone I've always been a doctor. Even as 10, I was a doctor.
Yeah.
I am the worst patient. I didn't carry that darn EpiPen
Oh,
until
stop it. Oh my God. I would have been so
maybe
nervous.
15 years ago. And I told my mom, I went and I did a focus group in Chicago. I was sitting there and this focus group was all about asthma. And I was like, who these people? It was about EpiPens. And these people were so sickly. And I go, I have one. I should probably carry it. And
Oh,
so
I would be so
I
nervous
literally
to hang out with you. That is crazy.
I left that day and was like, I'm going to start carrying it. And I came home for like the next holiday or whatever. And I said, Mom, look what's in my purse. And she was like, oh my God. She was so happy. The thing was quite expired, but she was so excited that at
That is
least I
hilarious.
had one. She goes, I don't care. At least you have one. I'm sure it will work some point if you need it. But I'll be honest with you, I've never used it ever in my life. I've had an EpiPen since they started having them. I think
Okay.
when I was 10 years old was when they first started having them. I've never used it. There was probably two instances where I should have used it. One of them I talk about in the book. I had an exam the next day, and I'm sorry, the EpiPen says you have to go to the ER right away, and I was like, we're not going to the ER.
Not you
So
have a test to take, right?
I have a test to take and I have a test to study for. So what I'm going to do is I'll call my mom and tell her I've had an allergic reaction. I called my RA, who is actually a Chicagoan, who that's how I ended up in Chicago, Tiffany Young White. And I called her. She lived upstairs, obviously, from me. And so they were both at church. And I told them I'm taking Benadryl. I had an allergic reaction in the cafeteria. I'm going to sleep.
Mm-hmm. That is
And the
funny.
Benadryl put me to sleep. And my mother is the one that got home first. She called me and was like, Renee, are you okay? I go, well, I'm talking to you. Apparently, I'm fine. She was like, I can't stand you. You just, my mother always says I live on the edge. She's right.
Clearly, you live on
Right,
the edge.
literally. So I survived. And then the second time was when I was in med school and I had an allergic reaction. And let me just tell you, I was in med school and working in those hospitals. I lived in England and I was like, I don't want to be a patient here. So therefore,
Yeah, so
I
you had
knew
to get.
that I wasn't going to the ER. So I did the same thing. I took my Benadryl. And because of the time difference, it was like middle of the night here. My sister worked
Mhm.
really strange hours. So I called her and talked to her. And I said, well, I'm taking this Benadryl. And she's like, okay. And so they called me later and I woke up, But those are the two times I probably should have taken it because I knew I was having a reaction. But I could talk and I could function. Now that second time, saliva was coming out of my mouth, which meant
Oh
that
my
I couldn't
gosh.
swallow anymore. Right. So it was really getting bad on that second time, but the first time it wasn't. It hadn't gotten that bad yet. But no, I've never used it, but I do have them.
Oh my goodness. That's a lot.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, when I came here, probably because I was coming here so emergently, and my dad had these strokes, and I had to come and help my mom, and we were stuck in the pandemic, so I was stuck in my apartment 14 weeks. I didn't even pack them; completely forgot.
Oh my
So
goodness.
when I went to Chicago this week, I grabbed them, so I have them now.
Good. Good.
I think
Good.
I have three of them with me now. So I have three IVQs with me now. But and the thing is, my mom, she has one food allergy. It's melons. She just don't eat melons. We don't have melons in our house,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so she doesn't have an EpiPen. So
Yeah.
it's just me who carries EpiPen. So now I
Yeah.
actually do carry it, and so I have it. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's an interesting road. But I always tell everyone, my children, they can have asthma and allergies because I can handle that. I don't know how to deal with anything else. I was
Yeah.
like, you stop breathing. I know what to do when you stop breathing. I don't know how to handle other things.
Oh my goodness.
And I was like, and I'm a pro at that. So I'm sure I know what made you decide to write the book because you needed to get this information out. So,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
um, first of all, let me put the link up. You guys have to go get the book. And so what else are you going to do with this amazing book and, this journey?
Yeah, I mean, just continue the conversation. I think for me, the story really started when I would run into people when I would have Joshua and they would just be really insensitive to like the process. Like, well, where did you get that baby from? Or I didn't see you pregnant. So it really became more of me pulling over and not looking at it from a place of being offended, but more so like, well, how can I share information? Because clearly these folks are unaware. So with that, it was to start with like my journey with Joshua, like the process, how do you go through it? But then it became more of a memoir about my journey to Joshua. How did I get here? And to the very things that we just spoke about, infertility, just fears and love and all those types of things. When I look at what we really want to do moving forward is just to continue to empower people to, if this is something that you want to do, if you want to foster a child, please do that. If you want to adopt a child, please do that. I think that, we find ourselves, paralyzed by fear and not living our best lives because of that. And so, there are really only two emotions, fear and love. And so
Yep.
you either have to come from a place of love or fear. And I'm really hoping to empower people to live in a place of love and to consider this as an option if this is something that you really want to do. As I mentioned, I'm partnering with Tamara Brown, who's a dear friend of mine who's actually going through the private adoption. And so interestingly enough, she had purchased one of the products off of my website. And so I saw this person, Tamara Brown, purchased a hat. And I look and I reach out to her and I'm like, wow, I had no clue that she was even going through this process. And so to that point, we tend to do these things sort of, in silos or in privacy. And I don't know if that's, just out of, not knowing what the end will bring, but even in that, that is fear. And
Mhm.
so I'm really hoping that we can just have more of a bigger conversation around adoption and making it more of a normal conversation. We've had enough examples of this in our earlier years in pop culture. You can look at shows like Different Strokes, where, you had Arnold and Willis, they were adopted. They were adopted through foster care.
Right.
Punky Brewster as well,
Good
and
times.
many people didn't
Many.
know, again, she was abandoned. That's an
Right.
even deeper conversation to have, right? By her mother and her dad, and raised by Henry, who we
Right.
loved on the show. So there were so many other, even Spider-Man, there's so many other pop culture examples around this topic that I feel like it just sort of fell off. It bottomed out. And I think we need to pick this back up and really be more thoughtful about having these conversations. You could see the show This Is Us is sort of,
Oh
having
yes, definitely.
Modern Family. But I think just as an everyday people and culture of Black people in particular, we should normalize talking about adoption.
Definitely. Even A Million Little Things, they're fostering.
Yes,
Yeah, so it
I
is.
love that show, by the way.
You and me both. And my friend, he's been on the show 4 times. He's the only person been on that many times. Rael Watkins is one of the writers.
Oh wow, I love it.
This season he came on, and so he had 2 episodes that aired this season that he wrote. I was so excited, and his
Oh, I
name
love
kept coming up
that.
every week. I just watched this week's last night, and I just love seeing his name. But
Oh,
but to
great.
your point about Punky Brewster, you guys, Punky Brewster has a reboot. In case you guys don't watch that,
Love that.
Cherry Johnson was a guest on the show. She's my new best friend. In case you guys didn't see, and you guys have to watch the reboot because in the reboot they talk about Punky's bio mom.
Oh, great. Okay, I'm gonna have to do that.
Yes, so you guys do need to watch it. It's a really great show. The reboot has, well, they call it the continuation, and I think it's great. And we're hoping that they get several seasons, just like Full House did, because
Yes.
it's a great show. But yeah, there's all these wonderful stories about fostering to adopt that have turned out really well,
Yep.
and also there's so many Black children in the foster care system that do need homes, and I
Yep.
know that there's great, wonderful people of other ethnicities that take them in, but I think that it's nothing like when you have Black people raising Black people. That's
I agree with you. I totally agree with you. And I think
especially in the day that we live in now. I think you
exactly.
don't quite understand what I'm going through the way that, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And it's so funny you say that, because there was an organization, which I will not name. They did a speaker series on raising my Black child. And so many of these white parents had adopted Black children, and they now needed help with raising them, and not just from the perspective of being parents, but how do I talk to my child about police brutality? How do I comb my child's hair? These types of conversations that, and not to say that I'm against that at all, where if you find that you want to love a child and this is the child that you take into your home, but I just think that we need to, as a people, rise up and take on these, children that are in need as well, and bring them into our homes.
Definitely, definitely. And like I said, just like what is the name of the movie? There's several of them, but the football story, the footballer, and you know what I'm talking about, and the
Oh,
white
All American.
the movie, and it was
Oh,
it's a true story.
Antoine, it's not Antoine Fisher. Remember the Titans? I don't know. I'm just trying to think of
It
all
was
these.
one whatever, but there was a
Oh,
white family that
Sidelines.
there was that's what I'm saying. There was a white
Blindside.
family. Yes,
Blindside.
yes, they took
Got 'em.
in the black kid who
Blindside.
was a
Yes.
football player and stuff. And so, there are some great stories,
Yep.
great ones that come out of it, and I'm thankful that the children aren't in foster care. But like you said, there's a whole lot of things outside of just having to raise a child that you
Yep.
have to think about when you take on something like that. And actually, I read a story recently of a Black woman that's fostering white children, and she is confused and needs help. And I was like,
Absolutely.
and so I said, so these are all things you kind of have to think about before
Yep.
you do something like that. And there's a YouTuber that's very popular YouTuber, Black girl. She's single. She took in two. I think she adopted 2 white children,
Oh wow.
and she talks about her journey. And people, of course, are like, well, "Why would you do that?" She goes, "Well, I just said children. I didn't specify." And you know, and she
And
laid us
that's
off
something
with the
you have
doctor.
to think about. You have to move out of your way. I mean, look at me. I was very clear and I specified I wanted a girl. And then I had to surrender to the fact that I wanted to be a mom and not just the mother of a girl. Right. And so you have to factor that stuff in.
Now, have you thought about, do you want other children?
Not as a single person, I don't.
Okay, I did
It's a
not.
lot of work,
I
honey.
understand completely.
No,
Understand completely.
ma'am.
And plus,
No,
I
ma'am.
think little boys are more work than girls.
You know what? And it's funny because my friends that have girls tell me the total opposite. They're like, "Oh my God, girl, you got it easy," because the girls are really rough. And so again, I don't have a girl. I'm not raising a girl, so I
Right.
don't know that. But I'm just saying my experience with Joshua, and then mind you, a year of pandemic with a 4-year-old, right? Oh, please. I mean,
Right. But no, I think boys have more energy than girls.
let me just tell you. Do you think we know?
My
It's
best
a
friend had
known
two
fact.
girls and a boy, and the two girls, they would, I would take them and they'd come and we would do all sorts of stuff, and I didn't have to worry about one being in the other room and the other. The little boy, oh my God, he would just run around and run. I'm like, oh
People
my God,
don't get it.
oh my
That's partly why I moved. I mean, just the energy alone. I mean, I'm a high-rise living girl all
God.
day long,
Right.
but it's just not enough space for a 5-year-old boy running around. It's just not. And I'm just telling you the energy level. And this is when I tell you with Joshua, it's from the moment he wakes up until the moment he goes to sleep.
Exactly.
It's all day. People do not get it.
Yeah, my
It's
little
fascinating.
cousin, my favorite, he's 5'2", my favorite 5-year-old. He said to me one day he was tired. I said, somebody write this date and time
Right.
down in a book. This
Exactly.
boy never tires.
Exactly.
Never. And
Wow.
he gets up at the crack of dawn.
Oh, please. 5:30. That's
Yes.
Joshua. 5:30.
And I'm just
It's
like, and
insane.
he's so busy. I mean, they live overseas, and the boy
Yeah,
calls me. I'm like, Ashton, should you be using your mother's phone? What are you doing?
it's all day. Let me just tell you.
He's so funny. But yeah, that's why I always thought boys were just a little bit more. But and then I
A
will
lot
tell you, I'm a
more.
Girl Scout leader, and I had some Girl Scouts
Yeah.
that were, I thought, I was like, these are girls, but they are like little boys. These are kindergarten and first graders, and they
Yeah.
ran me wild. I said, Mom,
Yep.
I never seen little girls with so much energy. And she was like, oh, they were like little boys. I said, exactly. So
Busy.
yeah, but that's why I think, I think boys by yourself, yeah, that's a whole lot.
A
It's a lot.
lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
But congratulations to
Thank
Joshua, because
you.
he hit the jackpot, because I
Thank
think
you.
you are a fabulous person, and I've
Thank you.
seen videos and pictures of him, and he looks to be
Yeah.
thriving and doing very, very well. He's
Yeah.
so
He
adorable.
is.
Yeah.
Thank
So
you.
that is so wonderful. And I am just so grateful that you wrote this book, because, like we said, this is a conversation people need to have. You need to
Yeah.
talk about your options, because
Yeah.
there are options, because some people don't think there's options. There are options, because
There
a
are
lot of
options.
people feel like, well, I'm single, they're never going to give me a child. Not true. um you know there's, the LGBTQ community, there's no way that I'll get a child. Not true. Like,
Nope.
there's all these different scenarios that people live in now, and you guys don't understand, they will give you a child.
They will. They will. And it's funny you say that because when I was going through my fostering classes, I was the only single Black female in the class. There were same gender loving couples. There were empty nesters. There were family members that were taking on the responsibility of another, family member in foster care. There were not many in my class. I'm not saying that there weren't any, but in my
Right.
class, none.
Wow. So
I was
yeah, so you guys, we have to, and she was in Chicago, so that's crazy.
mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Chicago.
I just, for me, it was just more of a place of why do we not do that one thing? We can get all the degrees in the world, we can be doctor, PhD, and all those things, but when it comes to our happiness, why do we tend to put that on hold or wait for someone else to, be responsible for that? You should be responsible for your own happiness.
Right.
And so, yeah, I just think it's this fear piece is I don't live that way. So I'm not trying to, browbeat anyone that does, but I would just hope that we can empower people to move beyond fear.
And that's why my mantra is live life you deserve.
Yeah.
Everyone
Yeah.
deserves to be happy.
Yeah.
And I told people years ago, I figured out one morning that I have to choose to be happy on a daily basis.
Yep.
It's a choice that I
It's a
make,
choice.
and if no matter what happens in the day, I have to choose to be happy.
Mm-hmm.
I will not forget, I got a flat tire one morning on my way to work, and everyone's like, oh my God, that probably ruined your day. I said, no, God must not wanted me to get to wherever because
Yep.
there was an accident or something,
Yeah.
and that's
It's
why I
about
got a flat.
perspective. That's true. It's good.
And
Yep.
so I choose to be happy, and you have to take responsibility for your
Yep.
happiness. And there's so many things that we can do that we don't really realize we can do.
Yep.
Like we could foster, we could adopt, we could, there's all these different options for IVF and,
Yeah.
fertility and preserving. There's so many different things, and there's
Yeah.
so many ways to fund these things because I keep people, hearing, well, I can't afford a child. I can't afford. You don't know what you can't afford until you look into it
Yeah.
and investigate.
Yeah,
So
there's an organization. Willie Moore Jr. has the Will Flow Foundation, where they actually provide stipends for people that are considering adoption and that need support. So there are tons of resources out there on our website at My Journey to Joshua. You can find a resource tab that'll give you some of those tools that you need to help you through the process. And I'm just hoping that people really, feel the need. If you feel the need and you have that place in your heart, in your home, I just encourage you to do it.
yeah, really, I just said today to and I know Bam. I
Yeah.
told her today. I said I want to see his documentary. Willie May Moore Jr. is back. It's called The
That was
Adoptament.
so good. The missing piece. It was so good. So good.
So I don't know. I'll talk to you offline, but I want to watch it because I've been
Yeah.
watching him on Facebook
Yep.
talking to different people about it. And I was like, I
Yep.
want to hear this story. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
It's
yeah,
it's a beautiful story.
that is awesome that he's offering stipends. But yeah, just like with preserving your fertility, you guys, there's grants out there that will help you. Grants, meaning you don't have to pay the money back, and they will give you
Wow.
money.
Who knew
So that
that?
you can, right, there's all sorts of things. There's ways to get the medication product prices reduced. Percentages, and you don't have to be destitute and broke to get these
Wow.
these different benefits. So you guys just have to you do some research and
Well, the same way that we research, sales and degree, whatever, you can still
right,
get the sort of
plane tickets and etc.
exactly, hopper, all that type of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, same
Yep.
exact thing. So
Yep.
so thank you so much. I think this has been awesome
Thank
information.
you.
I want everyone to please go get her book because like she said, this is information we need, and if you don't need it, you might know someone that needs it. I have a friend,
Exactly.
after her mother gave birth to her and her brother, she decided to adopt a set of twins.
Oh,
And
love it.
they're probably 10 years, maybe 15 years younger than us. But
Yeah.
I remember when they came home, and it was so cool, and she had these cute little brothers. So there's so many different ways to do it. Like she said, there was MC nesters. You don't have to be 30 something. they
No.
will they will give you a child because there's
Yeah.
so many children in the system.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. I totally hear you. I agree. Yep. Just do it. Just do
Yeah,
it.
just do it. And I think that's the way I'm at everything. Just do it. I
Yep.
say if it doesn't harm you or others, you
Yep.
should just do it.
I agree.
But thank you so much, Deborah, and
Thank
everyone.
you.
Please, next week our show is actually going to be on Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Next month is Black Music Month, so the whole
Yes.
month we're going to have music executives and we will have some music entertainers. So I'm really excited. So you guys need to make sure that you are subscribed to my list, which is text Live Life to 66866. Live Life to 66866, and you will be on my list, and you'll get the notifications. You'll find out who's going to be where. If you subscribe to my YouTube channel, make sure you hit the bell so you know when I post a new video. And I will see you guys next week. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Thank